chocolate isn't the answer. Could you repeat the question? Hello, I'm Pat Coakley, and welcome to Podsnack's Art of the Diet, the weekly podcast that each week tries to ask the right question about how to maintain a significant weight loss. You can access all the episodes on www.artofthediet.com. Hello, this is Pat Coakley, and I've already lied to you in the intro. It is no longer a weekly podcast, it's a monthly podcast. Dropping, that's tech language for podcasters, dropping on the first Wednesday of each month. And this month, it's December 2018. And I'm going to bring you a new interview, which I originally was going to start the year 2019 off with, but I decided it actually is the perfect conversation to have for the month of December, and with all the challenges that we have for the month of December. The holiday buffet table, the relatives we see around our table, the world as it comes in the news. Let's just not get me started with that. And so anyway, I'm starting off the podcast with an interview with Gilah, and I think you're going to love her advice and her honesty, and because I sure did. Now, I also want to say that I'm going to start off January with a podcast that's just going to be my summary of 2018 and where I'm going in 2019. And I want to particularly draw your attention to a photo that I'm going to post along with this podcast of a skirt I made. Yes, I made a skirt, a wraparound skirt, and I made it from cotton that I had dyed in a process called echo printing. Now, I want to tell you that if I can be a domestic goddess, you all can do anything you set your mind to. So, don't get me wrong. If you look at some of the seams of this skirt, some of the stitching around the pocket, my version of straight stitching looks like Donald Trump's lie detector test. There are just peaks and valleys. Okay, I had to say something. But that'll be it, because it's December and because we've got challenges ahead. And I'm just going to let Gilah share her wisdom right now. Okay, so Gilah, I've been looking forward to talking with you because you're so nice. You offered to do this, and I think it's the most valuable part of 3.5 years of podcasting are these interviews. So I wonder if you could tell me, because we've not spoken before, what your first memory is of weight in you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Pat, for 3.5 years of inspiration to me on my weight loss adventure. My first memory is wanting to wear the kinds of dresses and even bathing suits, even as an elementary school child,
Right.
that my girlfriends were wearing, and my mother telling me that chubby girls don't wear these,
That type of suit.
kinds of
Yep.
clothes.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
um, uh, and my mother was very concerned about my weight, and I know she did her best um, to try and help me um, not let it get out of control. But she was always um, supermodel thin,
Okay.
and so there were challenges there.
Yep.
So, but those are my first memories of not feeling like I could have the clothes that I wanted to have.
And where did you grow up?
Ohio, the
Ohio.
Midwest. So,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
It's,
And so it, you had to settle for clothes that you didn't particularly like, and your girlfriends were wearing different stuff. Did that lead into you being more insecure about your looks, or how did that impact you that you realized
you
you weren't
know,
able to do something you wanted to do?
yeah. Well, luckily, fortunately, I grew up in a very, very small town and a very close-knit community. And so I was never really bullied or picked on. And I was a good student. I had lots of friends. I was active in social clubs
Yeah.
and civic clubs. And I started working by the time I was 14, and I was everybody's favorite babysitter. And so I was really pretty confident about everything in my life except my weight. And now, of course, looking back at pictures of me in elementary school and middle school and high school, I wasn't the fat girl that I thought I was, but because I was bigger than my peers,
Yeah.
I was always terribly self-conscious about my looks. Um,
I heard that
so,
the other
but
day from somebody else, that they look back on their pictures when they were younger, expecting to see this heavy, fat girl, and they didn't see that girl. And they were like, wow, why?
exactly. And what's so troubling to me about that is then when I did become really significantly obese
Yeah.
in my 20s, um, I didn't really feel any different. And I think, how
Uh,
is that even
I know.
possible? I've
Yeah.
always felt like that same obese person, but I really wasn't that person until my mid 20s and on into my 30s and even later.
Wow. Well, that's something for all of us to contemplate, what we carry
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
sometimes for no reason. So,
Exactly.
when are you aware of going on a diet for the first time?
Again, my mom really tried to help me in the best way she could. So I remember early on trying diets from magazines like, Family Circle and Women's Day, and,
Yeah,
the half a grapefruit at breakfast and the
right.
cottage cheese and tuna at lunch. I remember some of those during high school or during elementary school and middle school. And then in high school, there was advertised a product with back then the disease AIDS was not a
Right.
thing, but there was a chocolate chewy supplement that you took called AIDS that was
Uh,
supposed to aid in
yeah,
weight loss.
yeah.
And I remember using those, which now, again, in retrospect, that's horrifying that, that my mom would have supported that,
Right.
but with what she knew at the time, it's not as horrifying as it sounds now. So she was really um, trying to help, not trying to medicate me into something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And so
that's
did
my.
you vary? Did you go on these things or use these things and lose some weight and just not sustain the loss? Or did they just were they not very effective to begin with?
Both. I mean, I think there were times that I'd lose some weight and then gain it back. But again, during those years, I wasn't the fat girl that I really thought I was. And I mean, I was even a cheerleader in high school, and
Yeah.
always felt like the big girl on the cheer squad. But I look back at the pictures, and I wasn't that dramatically different than the
And,
other girls.
and were you going on these little diets then during that
Yeah,
period?
yeah,
Yep. And
yeah, yeah.
and so
So.
when you got into your 20s, when you did gain significant amounts of
Mhm,
weight,
mhm,
how did that
mhm.
how did you handle that? Did you decide not to diet for a period of time, or how
Well,
did you handle it?
yeah, that's exactly, I got married and had kids. It's kind of a cliche of I pretty literally let myself go.
Yeah.
And I was, had two wonderful kids, and I had a husband who, married me as a relatively, I think my wedding dress was a size 10 or something, which seemed huge to me at the time. But, he never, was critical as I was putting on weight and getting up to a size 24.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of fat and happy. And so I wasn't, during that time, I wasn't trying to diet.
Okay.
But also, as I was saying, I didn't really feel different than I had before.
It's
I think I always
interesting. Yeah.
felt like that obese person. And so as
Yeah.
I was really getting into, like, unhealthy obesity, I was still fairly active. My health remained good. I've always had great cholesterol numbers. I've always had relatively low blood pressure. So I just was packing on the pounds and really not paying attention to it.
So, when did that phase end of self-acceptance?
Well,
Because we know it does.
again, it's kind of cliche. I got divorced, and I wanted to start dating again.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not, my first husband was kind of an outlier in not being
Yep.
critical of my looks. And
Yep.
so it was after my divorce that I knew I needed to do something. I hadn't kind of figured out what, and a friend of mine who also had a weight issue, not to the level that I did, but she said, there's this special going on at Weight Watchers, and let's try it. And so
Yeah.
I started Weight Watchers with a friend in 2003, so about 15 years ago. So I was in my mid-40s at the time.
Okay. And what were your initial impressions?
Well, it's interesting because Weight Watch, my initial impression was very positive, and I had had no previous experience with Weight Watchers, and I was very successful, and I lost over 100 pounds between, actually, I think I said I started in 2003, but I started in 2002, and between 2002 and 2003, I lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
I went from 222 pounds to 109 pounds, which 109 was it was the lowest of the acceptable Weight Watchers range, and it was probably a little too low for me.
How tall are you?
But I'm 5'2".
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of weight to lose in 1 year. Wow. You
It was.
must have really done that program.
I was, I was meticulous about it, and I was committed and gung-ho, and the minute I achieved lifetime, I stopped going to meetings.
Yeah.
And over the next 10 years, I gained 90 plus pounds back.
Yep.
So for me, the key was the meetings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that's not true for everybody, but that
I hear it a lot, though. Yep, I do.
Yeah.
I do. So you gained back the 90, and did you go back to Weight Watchers? And what made you go
I
back if you did?
Yeah, I just feel like everything I do is just one big cliche. But um, in 2015, um, well, in 2014, my younger son met the woman that I could tell just from his interactions with her was going to be the one for him.
Yeah,
And by 2015, things were pretty solid with them. And I thought, sooner rather than later, these two are going to get married.
yeah.
And I thought, my son's 6'3". The woman he married is 6 feet. They're tall and thin and gorgeous, and her whole family is gorgeous. And I thought, I don't want to be the one that's embarrassing in the wedding photos.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
even though
yeah.
they weren't engaged yet, in 2015, I decided, I know Weight Watchers worked for me. I'm going back to Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
So they did get married in November of 2016. So between 2015 and 2016, I got back down to goal and lifetime. And now, of course, my goal, these 15 years later, was much higher than 109. My current goal weight is 129, and and I really do pretty much stay, you know, 3 or 4 pounds on either side of 129 pretty consistently.
So when you set your mind to it, girl, you really achieve it. And even though you say it's cliched reasons, and I think this is how I think about cliches, that they're more real because they're shared motivations. There are a lot of people that use that as a motivator and events in their lives. And so when you decide you're going to do it, you really do it. Wow.
Yeah. I got pretty focused, and both times that I jumped into Weight Watchers, I really dove right in and was really focused and committed, um, and that served me well now in almost going into my third year of maintenance. So
And how has
um,
that been? Because the other time, as soon as you achieved your goal, you stopped going to meetings. And when you came
it,
back in 2015, was it?
yes,
And then achieved your goal 2016. You've been
correct.
on maintenance now. Uh, and I'm guessing you go to meetings?
I go every week, except if I'm out of town or,
Right.
weather, whatever, but yeah, I mean, I probably only miss 3 meetings a year total. And that was the first thing I knew that I needed to do differently from the first time I lost all the weight was continue to go to meetings.
Yeah.
The other thing that I knew that I had to do was um, all the things that got me there, I needed to keep going. So to this day, I still weigh and measure religiously. I
Okay.
track religiously.
Do you? Okay.
I don't.
And do you
I'm.
track even when you have an off day?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
I think that's key.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guesstimate when I have to because I love eating out and I love celebratory food events and stuff. And
Yep.
so, but yeah, I write down the Weight Watchers phrase is every bite, lick, and taste, and
Okay.
I do that. So
Wow. And obviously,
yeah.
those changes have made the difference between the first response to goal, which was regaining 90 of your
Mm-hmm.
100 pounds. And this time,
Right.
you have stayed within a very, you know, narrow number, give or take a couple of pounds.
I have, but I'll tell you the other difference has been you, Pat. I mean, seriously, you and the other weight loss support podcasts that I listen to regularly.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's so. In addition to the weekly meeting, I'm pretty much daily listening to some kind of reinforcement that I'm not alone,
Right.
because that is such a isolating feeling when you feel like,
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
why do I have to, count every potato chip or whatever, and,
Right.
nobody else does. But when I'm hearing every day, lots of other people have to, that
Yes.
has helped a lot. So the continuing meetings, the getting support from you and other podcasts, the third thing that made a difference, and this is a little controversial, even at like my Weight Watchers meetings when the topic comes up. I did have the very dramatically hanging loose stomach,
Yeah.
like down past into my thighs.
Yeah.
So even when I hit my goal weight, I was still having to wear, compression garments, and
Right.
really, couldn't still just go get the clothes I wanted to. So I decided to have the abdominoplasty and paniculectomy is what they call getting rid of that apron.
Yeah.
So in November of 2016, after my son's wedding, the week after the wedding, I went in for the surgery. So having had that surgery is another huge motivation not to go back.
Wow.
So,
Absolutely. Now, why is this controversial? Because people think you shouldn't have the surgery, or people think you should love your body, whatever it looks like.
yeah, it's that, your body is your body, and anything, if you, I actually have not had anybody really explain to me why they think that the tummy tuck surgery or the weight loss surgery in order to try to lose weight.
Yeah.
It's like there's some bugaboo that people have about any procedure
Yeah.
that is somehow cheating, and
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right. So now you're able to buy the clothes that you always wanted to get and wear it.
absolutely.
So that must be a great feeling.
It is, and I try to not. One of the reasons that these podcasts that I can turn to daily help so much is because I do fall into the that kind of whirlpool of, how did I ever let myself get so bad? How did I
Yeah.
waste my 20s being, this morbidly obese person? And, why bother now that I'm,
Yep.
in my senior year? I mean, there's these horrible mind games
Yeah.
that we all play with ourselves. Um, so, I'll get in a pair of size 6 jeans or something and think, oh, if only your wedding dress could have been a size 6. And it's like, it's so stupid, but it
Yes.
happens. And having the support of these of you and the other podcasters and the
I
weekly
wonder
meeting
if you'd
really helps
mention,
get
I'd
away from
wonder if
that.
you'd mention those other podcasts, because I think it's sort of like a tip that some people don't use podcasting. Some do, but they limit them, and some may not know of ones that have been proven helpful. And if you've got a list of ones that have proven helpful to you, I'm happy to broadcast their value. So if
Okay,
you
great. Well,
want to,
I search around a lot and listen to different things, but the only other two that I listen to religiously besides you are there's one called "We Only Look Thin," and it's a couple, Catherine and Donald Weigel. She lost 150 pounds and he lost 100 pounds. And I love them for much of the same reason I love you, that they're hilarious. Just like you
okay,
make me laugh every week, every time I listen to you, they make me laugh too. And it's real, honest, like just, and again, much like you, just the daily challenges and the daily struggles
yeah,
of maintenance. And then the other one I listen to religiously is Heather Robertson's Half Size Me.
right. Okay.
And
All right.
um,
Well,
so,
it's
but
just helpful
half size me seems more focused on the losing to
losing
me
weight.
than the
Yeah.
maintaining. So
Yeah. And the first one you mentioned, We Only Look Thin, they're
mhm.
talking about maintenance more than losing
Yeah,
weight. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that's very helpful because honestly, these are the little nuggets from these interviews.
Mhm,
Not only that
mhm,
your story may resonate in narrative form, or emotional form, things that,
mhm.
like looking at those pictures of you as a young girl and not seeing the fat
Yeah,
girl that you felt you were. All of those things resonate. But also for me, it's the practical how to get through today, 2018, and what works
yeah,
and what doesn't. And if you find that
yeah.
these podcasts really help you on an ongoing basis, I consider that really valuable because somebody will follow up and will take a look and maybe will start listening routinely just like you do. So that is really helpful.
And I do think I appreciate you saying that, and I think it's worth um, giving that a shot for anybody. But I am mindful that the same thing doesn't work for everybody. Like there's plenty of people having success with Weight Watchers that never go to a meeting.
Right.
There's plenty of people, losing weight that would, rather be binge watching something on TV than listening to a podcast. I mean, there's lots of ways to do this, but the more, like you say, tips we each have, the more likely we are to find something that does resonate and work for us. So,
And I also think having a toolbox ready. So when we reach the point where our self-inventive characteristics seem to be failing us, if we can listen to how somebody else is reinventing the wheel for the 4,000th time, we can
mm-hmm.
go,
Yeah,
all right, let me just try this.
yeah,
And so I do think you're right, but I also think that those that are successful totally on their own, and yes, they do exist, but I think the statistics of people who maintain a significant weight loss are so abysmal that
yeah,
you don't even want to look at them. But
yeah,
when you talk to people who are successful, inevitably they'll share something like what you're sharing. That it's not just by magic, it's by accountability. You're going to the meeting, you're weighing
mm-hmm.
yourself, you're
Mm-hmm.
tracking. Even when you have a blow up day, you track the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to other
Mm-hmm.
people who are struggling with the same thing. It
Mm-hmm.
helps orient you to the kind of issues that you are dealing with every day. And some people don't want to do it with others, and I get that. And I
Yeah,
think all the more value to podcasts for those people that don't go to meetings and don't hear. I personally don't go to meetings anymore, but I did for
right.
8 years following
Yeah.
my goal. So I know life with and without. But I wouldn't have dared, frankly, not go to a meeting for 8 years because I felt
Well,
that
that's,
was my
yeah.
accountability, that there was
And
no
that's certainly,
bullshitting that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I totally agree.
So
So
if you
that,
were giving advice, like one of the things you said that brings you down sometimes is that, you get into your size 6 jeans and you go, now, why wasn't I able to reclaim my 20s in this
yeah,
size? Why did it take me X amount
yeah.
of life experience to get to this point? If you were talking to a 20-something-year-old, what would you say to them, do you think, that might help them not let their 20s go?
I think if I would have really understood that starting to build simple habits into what I was doing would have helped me not get to the morbidly obese
Yeah,
stage. That I guess I always felt that I either had to be doing something drastic and perfect or get the whole thing. Whereas
yeah, either or.
what
Yeah,
Weight Watchers has taught me is that, okay, so start with, drinking more water, replacing, one or two of your cans of soda a day with a glass of water
right.
instead, and, build that habit. And then, you know, um, you want more fruits and vegetables and less carbs and, less sugary stuff, and just doing these things gradually and not having this all or nothing mentality. I think I wish I would have had somebody talking to me about that in my 20s. That
That
it's
makes a lot of
all,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, that it's the habits that
And
that
if you would pick
keep.
3 habits, simple habits,
Mm-hmm.
that you would highlight, one of them would be just simply exchanging one of your sodas for a water, for example.
If that right,
If you
if
were a
one of
soda
your
drinker, right.
right, that which I was,
Yep.
so that kind of thing, just looking for substitutions. Yeah, I think across the board, just looking for healthy substitutions that you can make um, simply, and just get used to that, like kind of one at a time. So, then things like with activity, like taking stairs instead of elevators,
Yep.
instead of, feeling like you have to go to a gym and do the spin class and do the blah, 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 why not just get in the habit of taking stairs instead of elevators, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've not heard it really phrased that way, but it is the essence of success, are simple, doable habits that don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily require you getting in a car and going someplace to do it, like the spin class or whatever, which that is fine to have that access. But there are things you can do that you don't have to pay membership for
Right, right, right.
that set the
So,
stage, the elevator versus the stairs. I mean, really,
yeah,
those are very practical things. And I think what you're saying is that was available and out in the atmosphere when you were 20, but it was
yes,
something that no one really had been able to communicate to you. Your
right.
mother's
Nobody
response
said that to
was
me. Right.
your mother's
Yeah.
response was to try to get some sort of diet or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, some external thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
fix it.
Exactly.
And as you said, she did the best she could, but now you know that it all
Right.
begins with simple things and not overwhelming
Absolutely.
perfectionistic things, which it's not either or. It's not you do this extreme or you do nothing. There's an in
Right.
between.
The other thing that I have gotten so much better about that. I struggled with more if I had a bad lunch. If I went out for lunch with girlfriends and instead of having the salad that I knew I should have, if I had the cheeseburger and onion ring,
Right.
I was one that would say, well, I've already blown this day, so for dinner, I'm going to go have, fettuccine Alfredo instead of, and that in these last 3 years, if I make a bad choice, either by plan or by, just chucking it all for one meal, getting some better judgment.
Right.
I don't compound that by saying, oh, well, I'll jump back on the Weight Watchers wagon next week or tomorrow. It's always the very next meal I get back on track. So,
boy, that's right there. That's a step to success. Because if you stop the slippery slope, you don't end up where we have in the past. Well, Gilah, I must say this was very, very interesting for me. And since I'm a veteran of these things, I think I say that with some authority. And I also think what you shared will be really helpful to my audience. I want to thank you very, very much. And I wish you the best. And I can tell that you're in good hands. In other words, in your hands. You know what you're doing.
Well,
so that's it for this podcast, number 160. And thank you again to Gilah and to all of you, the very best for this coming month. And do go to www.artofthediet.com to see my skirt. And I hope you can be inspired to just accomplish whatever you set your mind to accomplish. Because people, my family in heaven are slack-jawed that I made a skirt. And I'd like to say there were signs of my domesticity at some point in my 73 years. There were not, okay? There were not. So I'm going to go off on that humorous and light note. And if any of you would like to be interviewed in the coming year and share your story, which I hope you do, please contact me at my email, artofthediet@gmail.com. So, over and out.